Hi, my name's Jay and this is the Camden Stitch. Thank you for joining me today. I've got a slight sense of deja vu because I filmed this a couple of days ago and it was very, very hot. I was very tired, and when I came to edit it, it was just tripe. I was talking gibberish and I didn't want to put it out, so I am having another go, round two. Ding ding. Oh, speaking of ding ding, if you haven't subscribed yet, then click on the subscribe button below please, and the little notifications bell, and that way you will never miss another one of my blathering vlogs. I'm also wearing a mic. Can you let me know if it makes a difference? Okay, so please let me know in the comments if you think the audio is any clearer. Right, so today I'm going to be talking to you about the Seamwork Audrey denim jacket. It is a little bit of an in-depth review, and the reason for that is because I did find one or two areas in the pattern that if you were sewing this for the first time, you might maybe want to do differently or just be alerted to. When I look for a review, I want to know exactly where the problems are, if there are any, and what issues the reviewer had with the pattern. I hope I don't bore you with my forensic detail, but as I have discovered in the process of making this denim jacket, I am actually not the bodge job person I once thought I was. I am a perfectionist. I think that sewing has made me a perfectionist, or it's made me realise that I actually care a lot more about the end product than I thought I did. I've always thought that I'm somebody that does half a job really well and then does the other half just well enough to get it finished, because I do tend to lose interest halfway through any sort of tasks. Laura from the Specky Seamstress once called herself a 95%er, and I was like, that is so me, you know, hands up for the 95%ers. But I really worked my backside off making this jacket, and I'm really delighted with the result. I absolutely love it. I'm so proud of it. Obviously I've got it on the mannequin here, but I'm just going to insert a few photographs of the jacket as we go through the vlog so that you can see some of the details that I'm talking about. Overall, I thought it was a good pattern. Now, I have never really understood the song and dance around indie patterns, and I'm afraid to say that this one didn't really convert me to the cause. I expected the instructions to be in-depth and helpful, and I expected there to be online support in terms of maybe a sew along. I didn't find that. Maybe I wasn't looking in the right place. But I have to say, I mean, I seem alone with this, but I love the Big Four. I find their instructions brief, to the point. They give you just enough information, but not too much information. So you've got all the information usually on one sheet of paper, so you're not having to riffle backwards and forwards to find what happened here. And yeah, I like them. I mean, I learnt to sew with them, so that's obviously influenced my bias towards them. But I've been subscribing to Seamwork for quite a while. I've actually cancelled my subscription now because I found that I was building up credits way faster than I could spend them. Unfortunately, I do like some of their patterns. They've had some lovely basics, but the majority of their patterns haven't really appealed to me, and I found that I accrued about something like 8 or 10 credits, and then I realised that when I went to cancel my subscription, that I would lose those credits. So I was pretty unhappy with that. So I spent as many credits as I could on patterns that I liked, and then I've frozen my membership, and hopefully they will bring out some newer patterns going forward that I will like, and I'll spend the rest of my credits and then close my Seamwork account. I don't get the value for money that is providing. Obviously it's a magazine, which I don't read. I like to get my sewing information really from blogs and from Instagram, and maybe and vlogs. I don't really read sewing magazines, even the ones that come through the post. I don't find that they tell you much of interest really. So I wasn't getting any value from the Seamwork magazine. I don't participate in their community simply because I find that I already spend too much time online. I have enough fun running this vlog, which is a lot of work, and being on Instagram, which I enjoy. That's kind of my enjoyable social media that isn't kind of doesn't require a lot of mental energy, But really that's as much as I want to do. I find that I am a member of like a couple of Facebook groups, but I find it too much going on more social media. I don't want to be online anymore. And actually this is a problem I have with PDF patterns is I know that it's good for the environment that you don't have to print out the instructions, and that you can obviously get the instructions up on your screen and look and scroll through them. But my sewing is my offline time. I don't actually want to be looking at a screen when I'm sewing. I find it distracting. I usually put my phone away from me while I'm sewing, and I'd like to have my laptop away from me as well. So just me, you know, maybe that's a little bit old-fashioned, but hey. Anyway, going back to the pattern, I had seen other people's makes of it, particularly Abby, who made a lovely polka dot denim jacket, which I'll link to in the comments below. I thought it was such a classic make. I already owned a cropped denim jacket that I'd just worn until it's nearly falling apart, and it was very similar to this, but it's a lighter denim and it doesn't have a collar. I wanted to replace it with a darker denim version. The denim that I used was very heavy, rigid denim from a shop on Walthamstow Market. If you watch my videos where I tell you in detail about Walthamstow Market, then you will know that you will know what I mean when I say that it was from the New Fabric shop, which is the green shop. They do always stock a range of denims, and they're usually about £4, which is great value. I even got some rose gold denim from there a while back. So yeah, this denim, very heavy, very good quality, great to sew with, great to work with. I did break 3 needles while I was sewing. In some of the, when you're attaching the button bands, some of the places that you're stitching have, I think, up to 8 layers of denim, because you're stitching over crossed seams and over seam allowances. And I broke a needle on my overlocker, on my Pfaff sewing machine, and on my Juki sewing machine. Why was I sewing with 2 separate sewing machines, you may ask? Well, what I decided to do was set up my Pfaff with a navy thread to sew the seams, and then set up my Juki with two strands of top stitching thread running through the needle to do all the top stitching on. I chose lilac for my top stitching colour, and that worked really well, because it meant that I was working with 3 sewing machines, which was pretty difficult because my sewing table isn't that big. So the way that you sew the majority of the jacket is you sew the seam, you press the seam allowances to one side, finish them on the overlocker, and then you top stitch, you edge stitch the seam, and then you top stitch the seam. And basically wash, rinse, repeat. You do that with every single seam. So there's a lot of seams on this jacket, there's a lot of top stitching and edge stitching, and yeah, I broke a needle on each machine that I was using. By the end, and this is probably tells you about my newfound perfectionist tendencies, all this hemband that you can see here, I actually sewed that all by manually hand cranking the wheel round and round the entire band. And to do that, it meant that the machine wasn't trying to pierce the fabric, coming across a load of denim that was sort of squashed on top of each other and breaking the needle. It meant that I could adjust how much pressure I was putting in when I was piercing the fabric, and it actually, although it took a while and it worked my muscles quite a lot, it gave me a very even top stitching result. So I would recommend that. If you can see here where I've gone over several seams, the stitching doesn't wobble or waver at all. It's really, really even and regular, and I do recommend that as a way of basically getting a good result, because sometimes if you're going over a hill with denim, your stitching will wobble off a bit, go for a bit of a wandery path. That's my overview really of making the jacket. It took me, I'd say, a good 3 days of sewing. The last day I worked very hard. I put in sort of 11 hours, and it was 32 degrees in my sewing room, so you can tell what a labour of love it was. Having said that, I very much enjoyed it. I found it a very immersive sew, and usually by the end of the day I'm absolutely kippered and I've got no energy left. to sew, I have to go to bed. But with this, I found myself working, you know, up to 10 o'clock, and Ian was like, are you going to go to bed? And yeah, I got really lost in sewing it, so I really enjoyed it. Now I'm going to go through the pattern in a little bit more detail. I'm not going to take you through every step, but I'm going to take you through the steps where I thought that the pattern left a little bit to be desired, just in case you might want to pay attention to those as you go to make the jacket yourself. The way that the pattern is laid out, they instruct you to make all the component parts up first, before you then assemble the jacket. I quite like that as a way of going on because it is quite a long sew, and by doing that it does make you feel that when you're assembling it you do get that nice sense that it's coming together a little bit quicker. But I made the mistake of thinking at the stage when I'd assembled the sleeves, the body of the jacket, got the collar on, I left it with a day to put on the button band, the hemband and the cuffs. And I thought it would take me the morning, and it actually took me all day. It took me about 10 hours really. So don't underestimate how long these little details take, especially when you're working with very thick fabric like this. I was really lucky in both of my sewing machines coped really well with the denim. They both had lots of power to cope with the heavy denim. On the occasions that the needle broke, I think it may have been because I wasn't using a big enough needle. I was using a 90 and I changed to a 100 needle because I think that the denim kind of requires it because it's very heavy. I know that Keely from Voice of a Creative recently made this jacket, and her review is worth checking out if you're interested in making the Audrey jacket. She did say that she had to go to a sewing studio and borrow their machines to sew the jacket on, because her regular sewing machine at home couldn't cope with the layers of denim. So I do think that's worth bearing in mind when you're actually choosing your fabric for this. If I was sewing on my previous machine, I probably would have gone for like a 4-ounce weight denim, and I think the jacket would be perfect in that. You know, I just used denim that I'd got in my stash. I didn't really think about the weight of it when I made it, and I think this is about 8 or 10 ounce. It feels quite heavy, and it certainly feels very thick when you've got these overlapping seams. When you come to cut out the jacket, I would advise you to try and do it, set plenty of time for it. There is, I think I counted, there are 19 parts to cut out. I cut each one out and marked them up and labelled them with masking tape with both the pattern name and the number of, the letter that corresponded to the pattern. I also clipped the pattern piece to the cut fabric, and that was because a lot of the markings, I didn't make this up for about 3 weeks, and some of the chalk markings had worn off and I had to go back and remark them, and I find it very annoying when I have to go back and riffle through 19 pattern pieces to find the piece that I want to then go back and mark it. So onto the construction. The first stage tells you to assemble the collar. They don't tell you to clip the curve before you turn it out. I think that you're not going to get a nice curve unless you do that. I think that's quite an elementary omission. The second step is to assemble the sleeve cuffs, and this is actually where I think the pattern has a mistake. At point 6 they tell you to top stitch the outer edges. If you do that, you're actually top stitching the wrong side, and when you come to attach the cuffs you'll find that you've top stitched the inner side, and if you try and go back and top stitch them correctly, you'll finish up with the side that shows will look a mess. So I would omit the step where it tells you to top stitch the outer edges. If you look later on in the pattern when it tells you to attach the cuffs, that stage actually tells you to edge stitch the cuffs. I find myself checking backwards and forwards with both the garment flats illustrations, both the flat illustrations of the garment and the photographs that they'd taken, so I could actually see how it was intended to look. And if you look at the cuffs, these are as they are on the sample that Seamwork have got on the website. There's only one layer of stitching, so they're telling you to top stitch and edge stitch, but the garment doesn't actually show 2 layers of stitching, so I think that's a mistake in the pattern. I really wonder why something like that wasn't picked up that seems quite elementary to me. Anybody making that would surely pick up. And I did find a blog that said that there was that said that they found the same mistake. But I wonder why these patterns haven't been tested properly. I have complained on social media before about the fact that pattern designers don't pay pattern testers, and I think that although pattern testers put in a lot of hard work for nothing and they are providing a brilliant service, I see so many mistakes in indie patterns that I really think that the pattern testing process isn't fulfilling its purpose properly. And I don't find these mistakes in big four patterns. I'm not saying that they never make mistakes, I'm sure they do. They produce so many patterns, they're bound to. But unfortunately, I found mistakes in almost every indie pattern I've sewn. Now, I am a former proofreader, so I do have an eagle eye. But yeah, I think they should be paying people to test them who do have an eagle eye and can pick up these mistakes, because my sewing time and my sewing energy is so precious. I suffer so much pain when I'm sewing that if I find that I've done something that I have to go back and redo, I do really feel quite cross about it. Fortunately, I didn't find any more glaring errors like that in the rest of the pattern. Oh, by the way, if I'm wrong, I'm very happy to be corrected, and I'll totally retract what I've said. If you can explain to me how that step is actually correct and I've misunderstood it, then I'm 1,000,000% happy to be corrected there. Equally, if you found the same issue with it, it would be great to know that somebody else did too. The next part that I found slightly difficult was in the sleeve assembly process. I watched a sew along with a vlogger called So Live, which I found really helpful, just seeing how she was constructing it. And she was following she basically does the sew along live, and she was following the pattern stages, and she found it confusing, as did I. So but seeing how she did it allowed me to work out how to assemble them. The issue was with constructing the plackets here. One thing that I didn't like about these instructions was they don't number the diagrams. So as you can see, the steps here are numbered, but the diagrams are floating in space next to them, and it's not clear to me, and this is a PDF, so I don't think this was anything to do with the way my computer was laying it out. It's not clear to me which of these steps each illustration or diagram relates to. So because I found this confusing, I'm looking at this and thinking, well, does this step, is it talking about that picture, or is it talking about that picture? I got there in the end, but if I had to go back and tell you how to do it, I probably couldn't tell you how I did it. I did find that this pattern leaves a few raw edges on where you are attaching plackets, and the button placket, the cuff placket is okay because you do a bar tack, but I found that I finished up with a raw corner at either side of my collar, and also on my when I attached the cuffs as well. And in Keely's vlog, she does mention that she had an issue with attaching the collar as well. And one or two other blogs that I read online said that they had the same issue. I don't know if that issue has arisen because the instructions aren't written clearly, or because we've all misunderstood it, or because there's a mistake in the instructions. I couldn't tell you. But what I will say is that I ended up with this raw corner, which I took photographs of and I'll show you. And then the way that I got round that was I threaded a hand stitching needle with 2 strands of thread, basically doubled over the thread, knotted it at the bottom, and then I hand stitched round and round and round and round and round to encase that raw edge, and that will also reinforce that corner as well. But I found that I had to do that maybe 2 or 3 times at the end of the jacket to finish up enclosing all those raw edges, and I'm sure that I shouldn't have had to have done that because if it was a necessary step, it would be in the instructions. So again, I'd be interested to know if anybody else had a similar issue with that, or if there's a way of overcoming that. That would be great. Now, I didn't insert the welt pocket, so I can't comment on that step in the instructions. I decided to crop my jacket, so the way that I did that is all the main body pieces I took, I think it was about 3 or 4 inches out, at the lengthen and shorten line. So mine falls, as you can see from the mannequin, just below my natural waist. If I hadn't added the hemband, it would have fallen right on my natural waist. In actual fact, I think I probably could have done with it a little bit shorter. But I really like to wear my jackets cropped, I think because I'm short, because of my proportions. When it comes to attach the collar, what you do is there's a circle marked on the upper yoke and you snip through to sew the collar on and then turn it under and encase the seam allowance. One way that you can protect yourself from getting wear at that corner where you clip is to run is to run a row of reinforcement stitches at a right angle, little L shape, before you clip that corner. And it doesn't tell you to do that in the instructions, but if I make this jacket again, I will definitely do that. To make reinforcement stitches, you should lower your stitch length. So if you're working with a heavy denim, I'd use something like a 1mm stitch length, and just run them in a little L shape before you clip into the corner, and that will prevent the denim fraying through and making your corner run further than you want it to into the body of your jacket. A final weird thing in the pattern is it tells you to install the buttons before you do the buttonholes. I wouldn't do it that way. I would mark the buttonholes, make the buttonholes, pin the plackets together, and then use my pencil to mark where the buttons should fall. Otherwise, I would fear, it doesn't seem logical to me to do it the other way. Maybe that's just me. So that's it really for the pattern. They aren't massive things apart from, I think, the mistake with the cuffs. Please let me know if you've made this jacket. Did you like it? Tell me what you think of indie pattern instructions versus Big Four. Do you fall on one side of the debate or the other? I'll pop in some photographs of me wearing the jacket. I feel a bit of an idiot in that I made it in the very, very hottest day, breaking all records, hottest day of all time. So obviously I haven't had a chance to wear it out and about. And when I took these photographs, it was, I think, 35 degrees on the balcony in the sunshine. And I really took them as quickly as I could and then went inside to take it back off again. But I am very happy with it. I am going to sew Southampton tomorrow, and I made it in order to wear there because I'm fed up of not having a me-made jacket. This is my first foray into outerwear and I very much enjoyed it. I can't wait to make some more jackets and then maybe move on to coats. Let me know what you thought of it. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you liked it, then please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, click on the subscribe button and click on the ding ding bell. I don't know, I think I'm a bus conductor when I do that. Anyway, it's been lovely to spend time with you again today. I hope I shall see you very soon with my continuing series on sewing on a budget, which will be about buying machines. And lots of love. See you soon. Bye. So I will be taking you through, it's thundering outside. I'm going to have to close the door.